Okay, so the thing we say about our kits is you can be from bag to fishing in 5 minutes. So we're going to see if that's true. So here we go. Let's open the bag and get set up. So seat out, point it in the right direction. Landing net, and that is done. There we go. Tackle box. Open it up. So with all our bits and bobs in there. And then rod and reel. Set that up in just a second. And then rod rest. So we just put that in place so we can let go of the rod. And that's everything out the bag. Okay, so rod and reel out the bag. First thing to do are these little clips on the rod. Just push the reel in and there's a screw fitting there. So just screw the reel tightly into the rod. And then to set it up, the line is on a little clip on the reel there. So what you do is you just pull the line off the clip. And the most important thing is the line goes under this roller here. So this is called the bail arm, and the line going under the roller means it's kind of trapped by the reel. So that's how it needs to go. And then really all you're doing now is just threading the line through the eyes of the rod. So push it through like that. Once you've got it through all of them, give that a little bit of a pull. So you've got some slack line, and then all you want to do is just extend the rod. And the tip to do it is to use this as your guide and get the rings of the rod to go straight, so they sit nice and straight. There you have it. So that's the rod and reel set up. So with rod and reel set up, now what we want to do is make the rig, so from the float to the hook. So I've selected this sort of medium-sized float for today. First thing you do is take the end of the line and push it through the bottom of the float. There's a little eye on there. And then the next job is we need to make a little loop, and this is the only knot you really need to tie, but all you need to do is to fold the line over so you have a loop like that, and then sort of pull it tight and then give it a little push so you end up holding a smaller loop there, just holding it together, and you just push that little loop back through itself. So you're just sort of tying a basic little knot, and that's what you end up with, and that's called a loop knot. And that allows us to attach the hook length, which we'll do next. We're going to use one of our smaller hooks, and our hooks are all barbless that come with a kit, and they are attached to a hook length, and that's a thin bit of line that the fish can't see, and it means you get more bites. And also this is a thinner piece of line than the real line, so if you get caught up or a big fish gives you a bit of the runaround, then if anything's going to break, it's this kind of thin bit of line. So it's a bit of an insurance policy. So once you've got the hook and the hook length out of the sleeve, a bit of a top tip for unravelling these is just put your fingers inside the little loop that they come in, and then just unravel it like that, and then it will come off nice and easily. Okay, so you've now got your hook length. The hook length, this is in my left hand, and the loop we tied in my right hand. So what we're going to do is push one loop through the other loop, and then take the hook itself and then just push that through the loop we've just done, and there you go. That's called a loop to loop knot, and that means that with your float up here and your hook down here in my left hand, you now have a hook length tied on and ready to go. So hook and float are on the line. The next thing we need to do is lock the float in place. Now this float says it takes 6 BB, so you can find your BB shop and tap a few of these out. And what I do is, I have fished here before, so I know it's about 4 feet deep, so I'm going to sort of estimate about 4 feet, and then put some shot around the float and give them a bit of a pinch onto the line. There you go. And do another one. So I've now got 2 shot locking the float in place. So my top tip is, once you've got things at this state, so you've got a couple of shot round the float, the next thing to do is to plumb the depth. So we take our plummet, which is this weight here, and we hook the eye of the plummet. We put the hook, the point of the hook, into the piece of cork at the bottom, and what we're trying to do here is find the depth of the swim that we're fishing. And if I cast it a bit further into the middle, the float's still coming up, so I know that I've still got more line below my float than I have depth of water. So what I'm going to do is bring the shot down to reduce the depth that we're fishing in, to try and find the exact depth. And when you're starting fishing, my sort of top tip is to fish on the bottom. So you want your bait touching the bottom by a few inches. So if we cast out here into the middle, okay, so it's right now, as you can see, that float is now sunk. So in the middle there, and I can just see the float that's about to come up to the surface, and it's just touching the surface. Okay, so I know that at that spot there, from what I've done, that is the depth of water. A little birdie told me that on this lake, the fish tend to sit on the kind of far half. So I've decided that's where we're going to fish today. So having had a bit of a plumb around with a plummet weight, last thing I'm going to do is just check in the area I want to fish what the depth is. So I'm throwing it out there, and the float is just coming up to the surface, and there's a tiny little bit of slack, so I can tell that I'm just a little bit over depth. So that's perfect. So the trick now is when you start fishing is sort of try and fish in that area, because you've tested the depth in that spot, and you know you're going to be, from what we've done, just a little bit over depth, so the bait is just on the bottom. And the last little job before you start fishing is to get the float so that it's sitting in the water, and so there's just about that much sticking up. And the way you do that is just by putting some extra weights, extra shot on around the float and down the line. Just a little tip: tend to put two small shot down the line, one about 6 inches above the hook and one about 6 inches above that in when you're fishing about 3 feet of water, and that just sinks the rig nicely, and helps it kind of stay in place nicely. So I don't know if you can see it on the video, but I've just tested the float out there, and it sinks nicely, and there's about 5mm showing of the float. So really, that's it. It's a really simple rig. Are you ready to fish now?